Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hawkeye, we're over it, honestly. Welcome to the warm-up episode 82. I'm your host, Brady Frost, and to preview QPR, I'm joined by Tom Bradshaw and Freddie Cocker. Tom, how the devil are you?
Brady, I'm not too bad. How are you, mate?
I'm okay. We're going super formal here, which I'm really enjoying. Freddie, welcome back, bringing us some much-needed cheer to the proceedings, I hope.
I'll try, mate. To be honest, I'd just about forgotten about Sunday's result, but now I'm going to have to talk about it all over again, so cheers for that.
That's all right. What can we do? Anyway, Freddie, we'll talk about it in a bit more detail, I'm sure, but what have you, I ask when it's your first show of the season to everyone, what have you kind of made of Town's start to the season so far? Bet you're delighted, obviously.
Well, I mean, what's the phrase that you guys always talk about on the pod where it's always shit or bust with Town? It's either absolutely incredible in the time of our lives and we'll never get it back again, or it's absolute bollocks. And unfortunately, we have been left with the bollocks. I kind of thought a bit pessimistically that Stoke was a bit of a flash in the pan just because of how the game went and how many chances we conceded. I really wanted, well, I still want Schofield to succeed. Like, you know, he's a Town legend for me. I know there's been debate about that term on this podcast, but for me, he's a Town legend. Like that penalty against Lincoln, I'll never ever forget in the playoffs. But it's just not working. I feel like he's playing a lot of players out of position to try, and then sort of saying that they're adaptable. He uses the word adaptable a lot, but I feel like he's kind of using that phrase for Adoni because we haven't got anyone else there who's got legs. So now we're playing someone who was brought in to create and score goals, playing them as in a double pivot or maybe in the three, which is kind of further back and not what we kind of bought him for. I mean, to be fair to Adoni, I think he's the first player I've seen who's actually come out and defended Schofield. I think prior to that, it was kind of deafening how little some of the players have been in publicly saying, you know, it's on us. It's, you know, we believe in the manager, da-da-da-da. It's kind of been more like we have to take responsibility for results. Kind of Rhodes has been in fairness to him, said the same thing. Tom Lees has, but there hasn't been too much as far as I'm aware. I don't know if you guys have seen anything else that I haven't, but there's not been a lot of like, we believe in the manager, his ideas will take time, blah, 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 which is pretty worrying for me. I feel like when footballers are silent, it always says more than if they're actually talking or even talking a bit, you know, falsely.
Yeah, no, and very well nuanced, and I'm sure we'll come on to it in more detail. But Freddie, obviously we know about your impressions, so I asked you what you think of Town so far. I'll put you on the spot here. What would Mick McCarthy think of Town so far?
What would Mick McCarthy say? Absolutely bloody rubbish. He'd probably say you need to get Ayeg Benny Yakubu in up front. That's what you'd say. And George Elokobi at left back, because he's the only person who's chucked a bucket of water on me and I haven't punched him in face.
Oh, cheers, Mick, for dropping by.
Yeah, thanks, Mick. And if you're wondering what type of podcast this is going to be, there's your answer.
That was pressure, you know. I thought I handled that pretty well.
Yeah, I think you did.
What are you on about?
Mick
was here, yeah.
Yeah.
We've just got links to loads of ex-managers basically tonight. We're just going to drop them in. They're just in the waiting room for the next half an hour.
Don't know how to work bloody Zoom.
Well, you know, we've joined the TalkSport fan network. You know, they get people ringing in all the time. This is what happens when you've got those connections. Anyway, right, we do need to talk about some football. The 1-0 defeat on Sunday. Yeah, we do, I'm afraid, mate. The 1-0 defeat on Sunday, I was there. It was annoying, can confirm. Makes it just 1 win in 8 for Huddersfield Town in all competitions. Not to bum everyone out, but 5 defeats in 7 league games at the moment. I'm sure I didn't need to tell you. Meanwhile, QPR have 2 wins in the last 3, but they did lose 1-0 last time out to Swansea City at the weekend. Freddie, in fact, I'm just going to drop in. Matt had a little thought on the Blackpool game. He sent us a nice 8-9 minute view on the game because they didn't do a pod on Sunday, and here's what he had to say.
Hello to the Andy Takes That Chance acolytes, Tom, Bradshaw and Farouk, a.k.a. Brady Frost. I hope you're having a lovely podcast, chaps. Keep up the great work that you two do on the warm-up, and hopefully I'll be able to join you sooner rather than later, and we'll have a good catch-up, and we'll see what Alan Lee's getting up to in a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, there was no podcast from us on Sunday. Pozza and Johnny couldn't get their permission slips signed by the other half, which just left myself and Cozzy Bear, who I think was working anyway. So unfortunately, no episode this week. But now I've established that it was all their fault, I'll move on and do a little bit of analysis on the Blackpool game. So the Blackpool game itself was one of incredible frustration because in my head I'd built this up to be the big one, a must-win game for Danny Schofield and Valhalla, if you like. Without being that guy, I thought Blackpool were every bit as bad as Peterborough were last season, and any below-average side, any below-average championship side, should really have pied them off without much issue. 3 points, bag of rock and a straw donkey in the bag. But alas, this season sees us continue on that Big Dipper as we're now starting to become cast away within the bottom three. Parts of this game were worrying. I've tried to back Danny Schofield in the face of an avalanche of stick that he's been getting, in the podcast comments and on social media. I want him to be successful. He's one of us. He's a town icon. I was there when he coolly slotted those penalties in against Lincoln and Mansfield, and I don't forget that. And I also remember him running the likes of Nottingham Forest and Barnsley ragged in decent League One campaigns, especially the playoff one. He deserves a fair crack at this, and he deserves to be successful, and I genuinely hope he is. But there are some enormous red flags surrounding his deployment of tactics and use of substitutions, and it starts really at the back. Tactically, I can see what he's trying to do, or what he was trying to do on Saturday. He's pushing Kane Kessler-Hayden far up on the right-hand side, so that allows Tino to come inside as an orthodox number 10, which allows better support to Danny Ward. But it's lopsided, and when it breaks down and the ball's turned over, it has a negative effect on our defence, which seemed oddly the wrong way round. Tom Lees has struggled as a left-sided centre-back this season, granted, but moving Turton over there was a choice that I couldn't really understand. With Kessler-Hayden so high on the right-hand side, this meant that Tom Lees often got isolated when the ball came back in a right-back position, which he doesn't really want to be in, and he looked in real discomfort at times as he found himself one-on-one with a Blackpool winger, having a free run at him. Whilst over on the other side, Yuta Nakayama's playing left wing-back. He's a more defensive left wing-back, which meant the defensive overloads, or the attacking overloads on our defence, if you like, which caught Tom Lees out before, were unlikely to happen. So swapping them over made no sense to me, especially with Turton being, adept at covering defensive positions like a right back. I thought Turton really probably should take his fair share of blame for the goal as well. I know it's not really been reported anywhere. Kessler-Hayden's tried to play a silly pass, yes. But to be fair to Kane Kessler-Hayden, this pass was born out of a nervousness as he'd been barracked by the home crowd with quite a loud chorus of boos for two previous back passes when in a very similar position, within 10 minutes of him making the error. Yes, Kessler-Hayden made the error, but for me it was still retrievable. He was charging, like in a steeplechase, if you like, after the man on the ball who was wide. Turton, for me, just needed to hold that central run to look to cut out the ball across, but he got sucked in towards the man in possession, leaving what was really a simple pass across the box to a free man, which ended in the goal. It's frustrating, but not as frustrating as picking up something, as failing to pick up something from the game. Town deserved it. They weren't great, but they created just about enough to earn a point, and they should have really, but for what can only be described as an apoplectically shit turn of events where Hawkeye went cockeyed and didn't pick up an obvious goal. This in itself highlights another issue to me about referees, and I'm not singling out specifically the man in the middle from Saturday, who I do and don't blame, but we're now becoming so dependent on technology in the modern game that referees aren't capable of making a decision as they no longer question it. Okay, Hawkeye's only failed once before in, I think they've said 15,000 games, which is a great record. But everyone in the ground saw that the ball was over the line. The referee had to see it, really. The liner was unfortunately on the wrong side, but I think even when the ball came up, he saw it. There was a man walking his dog on the top of the Kilner Bank in Dalton that saw it go over the line. But even the linesman must really have been able to see it, like I say, when the ball came up. If the decision is right, don't rely on the tech to tell you. Pointing at your watch doesn't really exonerate a bad decision when you know what has happened. But anyway, unlike Wembley, which was an absolute disgrace, the officials didn't have the benefit of several replays. So like I said, I'm not going to go completely all in on both of them on this occasion. And it does feel like, sadly, it is down to bad luck, which when you're at the bottom of the league, you often get plagued with. In terms of the response from the EFL, you can't really give us a point because of a bad decision or tech failure. Otherwise, you're setting a really dangerous precedent going forward there because, human failure, not so much tech failure, but, refereeing failure has been part of this game for, over 100 years, really. And it's, what gets us talking in the pubs after games, which has been taken away from us, really, a little bit, with the introduction of VAR. Well, not so much with the introduction of VAR. But an apology from the EFL or Hawkeye feels a little bit empty and shallow, but I think we should just be thankful for this happening in September and not May 2023, as we can still retrieve this situation that we find ourselves in, whereas if that happens, with 1 or 2 games of the season left, then it's a completely different series of events. Speaking of retrieving situations, anyway, I have to question some of the substitutions from Danny Schofield. I know having Michaela Helic on the bench would have been a boost to the fans and the players, but when Jonathan Hogg went off injured, if Helic isn't fit to play 25 minutes, then he shouldn't have really been on the bench, to be honest, just as much as Josh Riffle should not have been at centre-back, which was a completely bizarre substitution, as was the Ward for Rhodes one, really, for me. Danny has to be able to change the shape in this situation. Okay, we were getting wide and we were putting balls into the box, but there was only Ward or Rhodes in the middle against 3 Blackpool centre-backs. Blackpool were happy to park their donkeys on the beach second half, if you like, and we maintained our back 3 against a side with no intention of being in our defensive third, and surely in this situation a Ruffles or a Turton makes way for Rhodes rather than Danny Ward, and then Sorba and Pat Jones have more to aim at. And speaking of the Welsh infusion, Sorba, I thought, was back to something more like his old self. There were some excellent set-piece deliveries, 6 key passes all in. And he looked sharper and worked harder in open play. Perhaps once he'd gone to wing-back, he wasn't quite as formidable, if you like. But Pat Jones came on and the postman, if you like, yet again delivered with a promising little cameo. Some Pillikers bought tickets to QPR on Saturday. And looking ahead, really, there, Schofield is in the territory of really needing to win games. Incremental performance improvements are all good and well, but we need to see points on the board now before we, get ourselves into a situation whereby, it's not just a group of fans looking at Danny Schofield, it's everybody and the board. So to ease a lot of that pressure, we really need to start picking up wins. Really, draws probably wouldn't be enough at this moment in time. Finally, I just want to send my condolences to Dave, Raj, and everyone at Huddersfield Town that's been affected by the really horrible news of Eleanor Haig, as well as her family and friends. I thought Rambo did a really superb job at the game in what was really emotional circumstances, and the way he got the Blackpool fans' attention as well was fabulous from Rambo, and credit to the Blackpool fans for joining in as well. I thought the respect they showed was top class as well. I really enjoyed hearing Eleanor's interviews on Town's YouTube channel. You could always hear a smile on her voice, and whomever she was interviewing always responded really well to her, and I think that's a really huge credit to her and the way she was as a person and the style that she interviewed people in. And she's going to be a huge miss for everyone. But it's also heartwarming, I guess, to read some of the tributes on the on social media. She sounded exactly as I expected just by listening to YouTube. She sounded such a really lovely, warm and great person. And I think she's definitely going to leave a huge hole for a lot of people. So again, just want to send my condolences to everyone at Huddersfield affected. And, you know, if you guys need anything from the likes of me and Brady and Tom, please don't hesitate to contact us and get in touch, and we'd be more than happy to help you guys in any way we can. Okay, over to you guys. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Freddie, so we've heard from Matt. He's ranted briefly about the home defeat.
But that was a really good impression.
I thought that was great. Yeah, that was one of my best impressions. That seamless.
It's a good man.
He's going to respond to this going, "You slag" to me like he always does whenever I talk to him about anything.
Well, we know what to do if Matt can't host the Sunday. We'll just get you doing the impression. So Matt or Freddie, who knows, let us know. He ranted briefly about the home defeat to Blackpool. But what were your thoughts about the game on Sunday? Obviously, we can talk about the disallowed goal, but what do you think of the game in general?
What did I think of the game? I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I only caught the 11-minute highlight show, so there's only a limited amount of things I can say on this. And I am going to the QPR game though, begrudgingly. That's going to be my first game of the season. I thought we were pretty bad at the back. I didn't want to say shambolic there because I don't want to go too hard on the players. Like for this performance, we know what happened with Eleanor, and you know how much of this performance was affected by grief. You can't really say. I have no idea who was closest to what relationships they had with her. You know, some of them could have been playing on autopilot for all I know. So I don't want to go too hard on the players in that respect. But at the same time, you do have to say, well, they are professional footballers. They do still have to, put in a performance. To be honest, I'm not worried about us up front. Like, I'm really not worried about us up front. I think Ward and Rose score goals. Obviously, we didn't score on Sunday, but that's kind of been an anomaly. We've always scored at least one in every game. So it's just really at the back that worries me. I get that Helik came in and they didn't want to chuck him in straight away, but I kind of was like, well, we might have needed him, to be honest, in that game, in such a big game. I thought we've been so bad recently that it wasn't like you're chucking in a kid. He's quite an experienced player, and we chucked Kessler Hayder in, who is a kid, and he'd known the players for about 30 seconds. So I don't know. I'm in two minds about whether I agreed with that decision to bench him, but it doesn't really matter now because we lost. But yeah, pretty disappointing. From what I've gathered from speaking to people about the game, they were pretty bad, and we should have at least got a point. And the fact that we didn't kind of speaks volumes. I was speaking to my dad about it. My dad is almost as pessimistic as me sometimes when it comes to Town. And we both said, if Schofield doesn't, and this is before the Blackpool game, if Schofield doesn't win one of the next three, you can't put a case for him staying, in my opinion, because this time, 3 years ago? Is it 3 years ago now, the Cowley season when he kept us up? And the only reason we stayed up was because we had Emil Smith-Rowe, who is now a Champions League player. And I don't think Lightning will strike twice if we're that adrift after 10 games. I know Forest did it, but, they had an unbelievable squad. They had players whose ceiling was far above the Championship. Obviously the likes of Brennan Johnson, Jed Spence, James Garner. So I don't see us climbing out of the mire if we are, say, 11 games in with 4 points. I mean, we had, 10 games and 1 point last time, or were we 9 games and 1 point?
I think it was 7 and
1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and no team had stayed up until we actually did, yeah.
So if we are on 10 games and 4 points, I'm really worried. And I'm going to quite a few games before November. We're going up for a few home games, even though it's bloody expensive, and going to a few away games when we can. But like I said to my dad, if we're adrift or if we're in bottom three by the time it comes around to post World Cup, how many games are we going to? I know there's going to be people on this. There's going to be people listening like, "What are you guys so bloody fun?" And it's like, well, it cost me a lot of money to go up to home games. It cost me a lot of money to go to anything, and the cost of living crisis is pretty bad right now. So
yeah,
it's pretty depressing. But I can just only hope that we can pull it out of the bag, because in my opinion, and I've spoken to you about this, Brady and Tom, I don't think this squad is relegation material on paper, but we're just playing like a relegation team.
Spot on. Tom, we've heard from Matt, we've heard from Freddie, but briefly, Blackpool, anything you want to add?
I think Freddie and Matt touched on all the kind of footballing side of things, but at the end of the day, we were blatantly, you could argue, denied a point, weren't we? Really. And what's the worst thing is the situation we're in at the moment. A point could mean us staying up or going down. If things kind of, you know what I mean? It sounds stupid, but it's that serious. And when we're going to hear the chat I had with a QPR fan later in the pod, but he was he was like, God, your lot's luck with kind of referees and VAR and rubbish in the last few months has been terrible, and it really has. It almost feels like everything is going against us at the moment.
When you're down, you're down. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like if you're not playing well, fair enough, but then to not be playing well and get decisions like that and unlucky things like that happening against you is really frustrating. But it's just it's really weak that just like, oh yeah, we're sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Got to turn the machine on or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like, it just kind of brushing over it just doesn't feel right. But I don't know what they can do, because you're not going to replay the game, are you? I thought maybe the fairest thing you could do is award us at least a point or something, a retrospective point. Each give Blackpool the 3 points still. I don't know how that would sit or work, but I just think it's such a kind of big thing to get wrong, and for it to only happen twice since it's been around, the goal line technology, you think there should be something in place for that.
Yeah, and I think the only point I would make is I agree we should have had that goal. You know, like you say, it's the second time in 15,000 matches that's happened.
Classic. It's
Town.
a Town, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a classic Town. But I was at the game on Sunday, and Blackpool were not, obviously they beat us, but they were not good. They were not good. We were playing okay. Then Kesler Hayden makes that mistake. I think the most telling thing was there was no one giving penalties to Kesler Hayden. We've seen that in some games, because I think, to be honest, from my perspective, I thought Blackpool were still beat. We could still get something out of that, perhaps even a win, and we were fine. And then that goal goes in, and then I just wasn't convinced we were going to score at all. I think the funny thing is, it was Blackpool were so bad. If that goal does go in, the one that's not given, I actually think we could maybe won the game, even though we didn't deserve to. And I think what's concerning for me, and we've touched on Schofield, and James is obviously, we've had on the pod a couple of times. We've had a bit of an interesting chat about it. There's players who were exceptional last season, like Tom Lees, and he doesn't look himself. I think Nichols looked shaky. He passed it out for a chance, and they nearly scored from that. And for me, I don't. And Freddie, you actually touched on a really good point there, and we should say, we tweeted about it, but obviously, I respect. All our love and thoughts go to Ellen and his family and friends, because you're right, that could have an impact on the players. They tweeted a lot about the connections, but I think in terms of the season as a wider result, I think that's, if you see Nichols and Lees, two experienced pros, making mistakes, either they're not being coached correctly, or the coach has given them instructions and they're not able to carry it out. And I think that's what concerns me. And I think
either way it's bad. Yeah.
Either way it's bad. And I don't want to jump on Schofield out, because Danny Schofield was an excellent player at Town, and I really wanted to work out. But I think I came away from that Blackpool game very downbeat, because I thought they were terrible. And if you can't beat, they're the worst team I've seen us play this season. And if you can't beat them, I think it's a concern.
We made the goal an excuse, which is annoying. Like, obviously it is one of the biggest jokes that we've had as a decision, like I can think of in the last 5 to 10 years happening for Town outside of the playoff final, because this was meant to be a foolproof system by and large, and it is for other sports like tennis. But like, the players should have taken responsibility and said, we will win this game, and then that becomes more of like a side issue because we've won the game. And I think last season we might have done that. And some of the leadership group might have taken more responsibility and tried to essentially do that. But because it didn't happen, obviously the ghost goal is the main issue and the main talking point. So it kind of annoyed me that we perhaps didn't see it as a way of kind of geeing ourselves up and, backs against the wall, siege mentality. Whereas now, post-match, I'm not saying all of the players have, I'm not saying any of the players have actually, but the narrative has become that, so to speak.
Mm.
And, controversially. Sorry,
yeah.
you go.
No, go on. No, you go, Brady. It's all right.
I mean, controversially, I'm not trying to rile people up or do a bit of a, come angrily tweet at me, but it's the same with the playoff final. I know we've talked to death about those decisions, but ultimately we weren't good enough.
We weren't good enough,
and,
you're right.
It's an injustice, but
say
it's almost an excuse. Like we weren't good enough, and it was the same on Sunday.
Exactly. That's it.
Agreed.
Yeah, dear.
Sorry, Tom, what were you going to say?
No, just going to touch on that really.
Okay.
You can't really. It's just an excuse, isn't it? And that's the kind of annoying thing at the moment. I think Matt has touched on it a lot. We haven't actually really seen Town play well yet this season. We played okay in spells against Stoke. There's some really good bits, but there's not been a full solid game where it's clicked. But so in the kind of back of my mind, it's like I feel like Schofield is almost doing a carbon copy of Carlos and is sticking to a system that isn't working. And it seemed to take Carlos too long to realise you've got to be adaptable. I don't see how Schofield hasn't almost figured that out yet. Do you know what I mean? Because when Carlos started, it wasn't brilliant, was it, that first season? And it was mainly down to him always playing that same system and that same style, I thought. And then this last season where we were successful was because he adapted to it. He used the players to the strengths that they have. And you could argue that maybe Schofield isn't doing that at the moment. He's playing players that potentially just aren't good enough for the system. I mean, we've got good players, but they're not the right players to play in the system that he wants to play.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, though, I'm not trying to disagree with you, but, we saw in pre-season that Schofield played a back four, and he's already changed it to a three. And I don't want to be that guy, but I will admit, Lewis O'Brien was going to be a huge loss, absolutely. But I thought we would rebuild the midfield to compensate for that. And look, we've talked about it a lot already this season. Tom Kasumu, he's injured, and that's a shame because maybe he could bring a lot of the energy and dynamism that midfield needs. But we're missing that so much. We just don't have anyone like him who can fit in, and that's really harming us.
I think that was the biggest mistake for me. I mean, knowing that Kasumu was crocked for at least a little bit, I feel like there should have been at least some moves. Either it's a loan, a Prem loan, or maybe trying to poach someone from League One or even League Two. Just someone who's got a bit of legs who we can have as cover.
Yeah.
Obviously, Scott High has gone on loan, but I don't think he was really the answer in that position. But the fact that we scrambled around and got those signings in on deadline day, but didn't think and future plan once we saw that Kasumu is as injury prone as he seems to be, we didn't get anyone in. Like, for me, that was a bigger priority than left back, because our midfield options now, they're not limited, but they're limited in what they can do, if that makes sense. So they have specific roles and they have specific strengths, but their glaring weakness in all of them is that we haven't got a lot of pace. We haven't got a player who can cover a lot of ground outside of Kasumu. So that's the biggest worry for me, because midfield is normally the key battle in every game in the Championship, and it is most games at a high level, to be honest. And if we get overrun, what is our answer? We don't really have one.
Yeah. I mean,
God, that was depressing. Sorry.
Sorry. No, it is. It's we do need. The impressions will come in handy, but we probably need to talk about QPR.
Yeah.
Well, please, can we talk about them? Because
I've got there's someone wanting to join. I think Neil Warnock's in the waiting room. He wants to maybe promote his recent tour, because he used to work for QPR as well. So
I have just come out of a tour at Cardiff. So I really enjoyed that, Tom. I did enjoy the prawn sandwiches they gave to me as well in the interval. Really enjoyed that. Now, by all means, enjoy it, but enjoy it by being fucking disciplined, eh?
Oh, what a legend Warning is there.
What a legend. Thank God for those
QPR
contracts.
legend as well.
Big QPR legend. And the all famous saying Adel Tadabut.
Yeah.
And
Well, you've
I
got
don't
Adel
know,
Tadabut in your team. You can't go wrong, can you?
the classic Abdel Tarat, the street swept forget player, except it's mentioned every 2 weeks that the street swept forget him. So surely the streets will remember. Anyway,
Right,
QPR. Let's talk about QPR and then we'll get some questions. Tom, who's your key player for QPR? Because obviously new manager, you spoke to the QPR fan, which we'll hear in a little bit. But who have you selected for this one?
Well, there's two that just stand out massively, isn't there? And annoyingly, one of them we had the option to sign and we turned it down, didn't we?
Take him out, play it, Tom.
No, I won't go for him then. But I'll go for someone that I like as a player. I think he's quite a handful. He's only got one goal from this season, but I'm sure he'll be up top for him on Saturday. But that Lyndon Dykes, really rate him as just a big lad up front who's going to give you a nudge, get stuck in. He's going to cause us trouble, really. I think Hellick, I'd love to see Hellick see if he can handle it, because I just think Lees is missing that next to him at the moment. Someone to, he's going to give Lees trouble if it's just Lees in that back three this weekend, to be honest. So, but he's my key player. QPR really interesting though. Yeah, I'm sure you two will mention their main threats at the moment now. So Freddie, do you wanna highlight the one that got away?
Oh, thank God. That was the only bit of research I've done for this bloody pod. It's got to be Chris Willock, innit? I thought he was slightly underrated at Town, but perhaps maybe that might have been because he wasn't as consistent for us at that point in his career. But he's definitely consistent now. He's got 4 goals in 5 games this season. And he was pretty great for QPR last season. He's going down our left wing, which is our most vulnerable side. So that's a joy. I'll be glad to watch that. He could definitely haunt us again, couldn't he? I mean, I'm a big fan of Ilias Chair on the other wing. And I'm generally a fan of QPR as a side, to be honest. I mean, I watched them last season when they beat us, and I was quite impressed. Like they passed the ball around well. For some stupid reason, we decided to give Charlie Austin stick all game. Some of our fans generally are quite brainless because he just fed off that and then gave us a little salute as he went off when they were winning. So that was great. I'm normally generally impressed with QPR as a team. Obviously, they fell away quite quickly and quite alarmingly actually last season when they fell out of the playoffs. But I really thought they were going to do it at one point. But they look good. They look good. I always come away from Loftus or the Kyan Prince Community Stadium, I should call it. Sorry. I always come away quite impressed. But please, Town fans, do not sing London is a shithole at that game. Please. You're in QPR. Like, it's not the worst area in the world. Always gets my goat.
It is a terrible stadium, though. And their lad on their pod was saying, he said he's quite a big lad, and he sometimes when they're playing bad, he's got pain from watching them, but also pain from sitting in those tight chairs.
Oh, they're awful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're so bad. Always leave the ground having rickets or something whenever I go to QPR.
Do you know? Can I just ask a question here? Because I don't like Charlie Austin, but where did it come from? That
the Lossall challenge.
It was
when he kicks him.
Yeah, Southampton.
Yeah, it was from that.
There wasn't anything when he was at Swindon, though, was there?
It was only that. It was genuinely only that.
The Southampton one.
It's 5 years ago, Town fans. Come on,
let
it go.
Celebrate in front of us though with Ward Prowse like cupping his ears, like you know about weirdo.
But he feeds off that. Why do we give him energy? Why do we give these players energy? Always pisses me off.
Well,
it's the stupidest thing you can do. It's like when we used to do the same for Ross McCormack. Remember that? Used to always give it everywhere we played.
Villa, didn't he?
Everywhere he went.
I think that was like the only goal he scored for Villa as well.
Probably against us. Yeah.
Well, you talked about a big lad earlier, Tom, and Freddie actually mentioned my player, but he's not a big lad. But Chair, I think he's the one I've picked, particularly because
tiny.
He's
a very small
man. He's a small man. But Tom, we said do you remember? We were nearly in the Premier League again.
Yeah.
A player we would have signed if we'd have gone up, or would have liked to sign
100%.
a quality player. think he is gonna. We've got midfield issues as we talked about. I think he could have a lot of joy in that. I'm afraid
3
to
goals,
say, but
3
yeah,
assists.
Yeah.
exceptional player at this level for me. Surprised, Burnley with all their spending, and someone like that. Surprised
Yeah.
Oh,
they're
he'd have
still
fit
in
right
for
in
him.
that team, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Instead, they've got Scott Twine, who's the poshest footballer I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's
Although
really
saying that,
interesting. Go
I
on.
found out Trent Alexander-Arnold went to a private school. Did you know that?
Oh, did not know. Look at that
Yeah.
for a pod exclusive there.
A Scouse private school.
Yeah.
Scouse private
There's
school.
4. It was 4 of them. I read it as like it was in a Guardian article about like state schools and private schools and like footballers. And Trent Alexander-Arnold and Phil Foden, both private schools.
Oh,
Or private
really?
or grammar, sorry. Private or grammar. So I could be
right.
wrong there. But one of them
Okay.
definitely went to private school.
Well, podcasts are a great place to throw out wild statements.
Oh,
No
yeah.
one's gonna check it.
Feel free to fact check me completely on that. It's fine.
Anyway, so we've covered our players. It's time for view from the other side. So, Tom, you went down to the Big Smoker, I believe people call it.
Yeah, I went to West London. The only true West London side, Alex told me, because he said Chelsea and Fulham are technically South West London. So, but it was really nice chatting with Alex. He sounded very, I don't know what the word is, but he felt worried for us basically. But
Yeah, he's
he
not wrong.
was very nice about it. So I caught with Alex from our generation about Saturday. Hi, Alex. Cheers for joining me today to just. Oh, fucking hell. Good start. So whenever I'm reading stuff. All right. Hi, Alex. Cheers for joining me today to discuss QPR and your thoughts on the game ahead this Saturday. How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, all good, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
Good, no worries. Thanks for coming on. It's nice to get other views from other fans. So, first of all, what are your thoughts on this season so far?
Well, I think it's slowly starting to come together what exactly we want to see from the side. Obviously, new manager and kind of after getting not really close last season to the playoffs and falling away, there's a kind of I feel like we're in a bit of a limbo. We don't really know. We could end up having a really good season, challenging for the playoffs, and you never know what happens from there. Or we could end up mid-table and it sort of all kind of falls away again, and then we're looking at selling players and selling our best players, and the project starts again. But I think with the most recent performance, it's kind of highlighted that we need to make changes in the midfield quite often, and that's why we've signed an Aston Villa midfielder, Tim Rogenbaum. I think that's how you say his name. It's quite a difficult one. But in the games against Watford and I forget now, Watford, and there was another home game that we played where we were very impressive. We played them off the park at times, and we went toe to toe with Watford, obviously one of the sort of teams at the higher end of the table, and we played a very intense sort of pressing, fast-paced game with a high line, and it was very, it was kind of a lot of hot nonsense in a sense, but it was good fun to watch, and it got goals, and we maybe concede a few, but it's going to be entertaining. And we'll kind of, at times we might play very well and blow teams away, like we were 3-0 up against Middlesbrough very quickly on into our game there, and then the other home game we mentioned, Hull, 3-0 up against them as well in the first half at home. So, and you think, we're surely going to be on for good things. But then you get the Swansea result where it all sort of brings it back down to reality and the necessity to fresh the side up every now and again. But there's definitely positive signs there. It's starting to click a lot better. And it just seems to be, at least at home, I think we're going to be quite an enjoyable side to watch.
Yeah, I was just going to say at home, especially the last few, in it, a lot of goals straight out at teams. Doesn't sound good for Town.
Well, the thing is, last week after the whole match again, we scored quite a few in the first half, and we absolutely played them off the park. I was very confident going into the Swansea game. Spoke to a Swansea fan, and he was sort of like, "Oh, we don't like teams that press us," and we were pressing Hull, and I thought this is going to go really well, and it comes through it, and it was just a drab 1-0 loss to a side that we probably should have beaten. But
yeah,
you learn from that, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So obviously we just transfer windows just shut, so there'll be a few new players, but then you've obviously got players from last season as well. But is there anyone this season that really excites you?
I'm going to slightly cheat and say 2 players because they work better together. When they're apart, they're still good, but they're not. But when it's together, it's like 2 different players. It's Chris Willock and Ilias Chair. Their link-up play is fantastic, and they've both had brilliant starts this season. Willock's on 4 goals already, and he was scoring a goal a game, obviously, before the weekend. Chair, I believe, has got 3 goals and 3 assists already. And at the very sort of first couple of games, we were looking at it and sort of seeing his performances and thinking he's not actually playing that well, but he's picking up goals and he's getting involved and stuff. And then he pops up with a very good free kick against Sunderland and then a goal, I think, the week later. So, he just starts with these sort of not so impressive performances, but there's moments of quality at crucial times. But in the last 2 games against Hull and Watford, he really did hit his stride, along with Willock, and they've just been fantastic. And they're going to be the 2 players that are going to drive us on this season. Chair, particularly with his pressing, was unreal against Hull. I've never seen someone run so much. He had such energy. It was really good performances from them 2 so far. So if there's going to be 2 players that are going to bring success for QPR, it's going to be them.
Yeah, 2 really good players. That I think when we had Willock on loan that season, there's something like we were offered to buy him for something silly. It was probably the same amount you paid, and we turned it down. And it's just that's got to be one of the regrets that Town have got to have not taking that up. And then Chair, what a player! I remember in the summer, one of the funniest things I saw was like it was like I don't know if it was the local paper of round near Millwall or something suggesting that they were going to try sign him, and it's just like
there's no way that we would sign or sell to a sort of another championship team.
Yeah.
You'd have to play a massive premium on him.
Yeah,
but it's just bizarre. But that wouldn't be happening. No way.
No. So yeah, it should be a lively game. I think there'll definitely be goals. Hopefully Town can get a couple. That's the problem. We've had a few games recently where we've come up against teams who have conceded, and then we've still not been able to score. So going on about that, then, Alex, what's your prediction for Saturday? Have you got anything in mind?
Well, like you said, there will be goals. We play this really high line now, and there's not a lot apart from the 2 fullbacks. Ethan Laird in particular has got an unbelievable amount of pace on him. So he will be tracking back quite a bit, I imagine, whilst also getting forward. But Dunn and Dickey, who I assume are going to be starting as the centre-backs, aren't the quickest. So if you get the ball over the top and behind them, and you've got someone up top that's sort of just a little bit quicker than them, then you've got a pretty good chance of getting a couple of goals. I don't want to be sort of like, too excited about it, but the last couple of games I've seen, we've scored 6 goals, I think, at home in the last 2 games I've been to. So I would personally say probably get a 2-1 win for us would be fair at this point. But like I said, I was confident last week about going into Swansea, and we were humbled for 1-0 loss. So, it's football, it's sport. You never quite know what's going to happen in it, and this could be the turnaround in the season for you.
Let's hope so, but I don't know, mate. I think that's very generous of you, 2-1.
I never want to be sort of too. I never predict us to lose.
Yeah,
but I'm never going to predict us to go and thrash someone because it's just not. You can't. You can't do that. You just can't.
I know, but we'll see, won't we? Are you going on Saturday?
Yeah, I will be going. So it'd be nice to get back there.
Yeah, nice one. Well, enjoy it. We've got a couple of nice away kits that you can admire, so that'll be something.
Perfect. I do appreciate a good football kit. It's one of my many pleasures. Yeah,
that's the one thing I've enjoyed so far this year. So that's all right. All right. Thanks for joining us, mate. Good luck on Saturday. But yeah, let's hope that Town maybe turn it around.
No
Cheers.
problem. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, mate. Awesome. Right. Brilliant. Thanks, mate.
Lovely stuff, Tom. What a great name that is for a podcast, by the way. Our Generation. Spot on.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tom,
Mm.
have you checked your letterbox?
Do you know what? I haven't, because they're on strike at the moment, Brady, so I didn't bother.
Well, solidarity with the workers, but clearly we've got some people who've crossed the picket line because there's a mailbag.
You've got mail.
Brady, I can't believe you've got DPD in to deliver this mailbag.
Yeah,
That's
don't
well out of
get
order.
every in there.
Oh,
I
every
can't
shocking.
stand them.
Anyway, so we've got quite a few questions. Thanks for everyone who submitted them. There's quite a few that are similar, so we'll start with this one first, which is from Ben at HTAFC_Ben. He asks, with everyone fit, excluding Pearson, what would you say our best team and formation is? Now, I think that's a good one because, as we saw, another criticism in the Blackpool game, a lot of players getting played out of position. So, who wants to be put on the spot? Who's going to
Go on, let's do it.
Tom.
Right,
Go on, Tom.
so Nichols in net, innit? We'll all agree with that.
Yep.
No. Yeah,
Shut
go
up,
on.
Brady.
Is Bilikapovic still there? Has he gone on loan? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, we've not got a keeper. We're not, yeah, Billock Capapit, can't even say his name. He was on the bench for Blackpool, wasn't he? So right, so then you're back three. Let's say we're doing the Schofield 3-5-3 or whatever it is. 3-5-3.
3-5-3.
Getting an extra man in there. 3-4-2-1, 3-4-1, 3-9-7-8.
It could be Skittles for as far as we know at this point, isn't it?
You're
Really?
just, you're just saying numbers, Tom.
Yeah.
Right, Nichols, Lees, yeah.
Yeah.
Hellick,
Yeah.
get straight in for me. And then I'd probably play Nakayama and have them as your three.
Okay.
I'll probably put
your
Mbete there
centre-backs.
and have Nakayama as a left wing back because I don't trust Ruffles, unfortunately.
Yeah. But then Nakayama, he's not going to get up and down as much, is
Yeah,
he?
but at this point, mate, it's defensive solidity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So then you play back four, don't you? But anyway, if you're doing the back three, that's it for me, I think. Or then we put Mbete there then. Right, and then your wing backs, Hayden, right wing back.
Yep.
And he's going to have to be Russell. Or
John Russell at left wing back.
yeah, Ruffles. Or like Brian, he said, Thomas potentially. Because he can do a job there. And you could argue that was when he was almost playing his better football last season.
Yeah.
When he was in that wing back role. Midfield's really interesting, isn't it? Who's your strongest? If you count in Kasumu as fit, then he gets in there, doesn't he?
Yep.
With Russell?
Not on current form.
Oh, I think he's
For
been
me.
a bit better.
Or Hoggy?
It would probably be Hog, Kasumu, Radoni for me, and put Radoni as a more advanced midfielder or as closest to being a 10 as possible. Or maybe Andrew in there, but then you could play Andrew in left wing and play Thomas right. But
That's what I mean. If you had Rudoni and Andrew in as that kind of the two behind Ward, with Thomas on the fullback.
Well, they both have to play. That's a given.
That's what I mean. I think you could do that. For me, that'd potentially be my strongest. I don't.
That
Ruffles
midfield, though,
just
innit?
isn't- Yeah.
So glaring.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, we
I
had
mean-
a Premier League player last year, didn't we?
Do you know what my dad said? He texted me saying, "Should we have got rid of Carol Lighting?"
Well, I don't know. I think he was a bit unlucky. But to be honest, didn't we offer him 18 months and he only wanted 6?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think it's one of them. And then
Right,
I think
okay.
if you get offered a 6-month deal, I think I can understand why
Yeah.
Carlos didn't play. And Russell, to be fair, I think we were
Yeah.
expecting Russell to kick on.
Yeah.
So what's your forward line then, Tom? Did you say Thomas?
So
Wardy
no, I'm putting Thomas as a wing back,
Okay.
and then I'm putting Rudoni and Andrew in.
Okay.
with Ward in front of him.
Okay.
I think.
Right.
Because I think Rudoni, like you touched on, Freddie, I think he'd be more effective further up the pitch.
Yeah.
More of an attacking midfielder than sitting in the middle. I know he's getting forward, but he needs to be getting chances because
He needs to be arriving late in the box. That's what he does. That's what he did.
That's what he was doing
Yeah.
at Wimbledon. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think, Brady? Have you got one written down?
I think mine and Freddie's is quite similar. So Nichols, obviously, I think he's been playing well, the only game where we got a good result was Stoke, obviously, and it was 3-4-3 pretty much. So Nichols, I'd go Helic, Lees, and Mbete. I know Mbete we've not seen play, but he's a left-sided centre-back.
Yeah.
He's never learned. I think that makes sense.
Mm.
We've got Kessler Hayden. I think Turton, I would put in, like, it depends on the game, but I think Kessler Hayden, if you want to go more attacking, Turton, if you need us to be a bit more solid. Nakayama is left wing back, because from what I've heard, like, he's pretty much Toffolo's replacement, or that's what they were thinking. Then I think the midfield too, it can vary. I wonder if you I'm debating between putting 2 in there or doing 3. But I think if I had to do a 2, I would go Kasuma and Russell, because I think Russell has been a bit better since West Brom. He was really bad and looked really off the pace. But I think if you have Kasuma for the running, I think that could work. Poggy's probably not going to play 46 games this season due to his age and his recurring injury. And then I think front three is interesting. I'd put Thomas on the right. To be fair, I'd have Ward in the middle, but I think Rhodes is a good option off the bench. And to be honest, you can switch them for me. And then Andrin, I think Rodoni's unlucky to miss out, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really know where to put him. I suppose you again maybe swap him out with Russell, but Rodoni's better forward, like you say, arriving late. That's.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that lineup. I think Kasuma and Russell is balanced. The only thing I would say is that with our midfield quality, I think we really need a 3. So if I was going to go really creative, I'd probably play Kasuma, Russell, and Holmes. I think I mean I'm a big fan of Dwayne Holmes. I do not understand why he gets so much stick. I know his passing isn't amazing at times, but for what his performances are at the moment, the stick he gets is so unwarranted. Like, it's like some of the stuff I hear at games, and like he misplaces a pass, and as if he's just like shot one of their kids. It's ridiculous, some of the criticism he gets. So I think he clearly cares. Like, he clearly is passionate, and I know that doesn't count for a lot in performances wise, but it shows on the pitch. Like, he actually will fight. He's one of those players will fight for us if it does get really bad. So that would probably be my 3 if you're playing a 4-3-3. And then, I'd probably play maybe Andrew on the wing and then have Thomas on the other, Ward up front. I know Andrew isn't technically a winger, but he can play there. Rodoni misses out, but again, you could probably swap out a few of them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I agree with you, Freddie, about Holmes. Tom does as well. But Hot Take said this earlier to Matt. I think he was a bit annoyed, but I'm not comparing him to Lewis, but I think in the specific trait of carrying the ball forward and breaking the lines, Holmes is the closest we've got to Lewis for doing
Agreed.
that out of all our midfielders.
Yeah.
Actually, I quite like that as a 3: Kasuma, Russell, and Holmes. So maybe I think you're right. Maybe 4-3-3, and then I suppose you put Turton and Nakayama as your wing backs, and Kessler Hayden maybe as a kind of.
I'd probably pick Kessler Hayden over to Turton for now, just because we need creativity. So, but then I'd obviously I'd have the same defense as you. I'd have Mbete, Helic, and Lees. Just because we need that defense. We need to put those 3 in and just keep them there now. Me.
Agree. Okay, Ben, there's your answer. We got there in the end. Okay, so this is unsurprisingly, guys. We got a lot of questions about this. So Hannah at HT Hannah 1 and Marcus Burlow, they asked a similar question. So Hannah said, if not Schofield, then who? And Marcus said, if Danny Schofield is to leave, who realistically would you want Dean to bring in? And who do you think Town could hire a manager this time around, e.g. Wagner, or continue with a head coach system?
Thomas Tuchel's available. Can we send a cheeky bid in?
I mean, my favourite comment of all the questions we got was, how's Tuchel been sacked before Schofield? Which I hope is tongue in cheek, because there's obviously clear reasons for that.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first with this then? If Schofield,
I'll have a stab at this. So,
go on,
in my limited research that I did when you sent me this question over, Brady, I had a look at the current crop of managers out there, and I think if we are, so I divided it into two types, right? So, British young manager type, which is the one I actually know the most about, and the firefighters. Okay, so for the former, I picked out three people. Now, the obvious one is Liam Manning from MK Dons, which was the rumor when Corberán left, but there wasn't actually anything in it, as far as I'm aware. His stock might have gone down slightly a little, given MK Dons' current position, which is 18th. But it's very early in the season, so you can't judge too much from that. MK Dons played some really good football last season in their third place finish. They're a bit unlucky to lose in the playoffs. They also got their model is also a head coach, so it fits our model. The other two I picked out, Mark Bonner from Cambridge. Excuse me.
Yeah.
They're currently fifth in League One, promoted as runners-up in the 2021 season. I actually saw him speak live at the Not the Top 20 live show in London, and he's pretty jokes. He walked on stage. I didn't know what he looked like. I was like, well, bloody hell, the bank manager's got a few promotions here. He just looks like an estate agent who's become a football manager. But he was quite jokes, to be fair. And he spoke very well. He's got a lot of charisma. I think if we brought him in, he could bring some sort of vim and a similar vibe to how Wagner came in and rejuvenated the fan base. But obviously I'm not comparing the two a lot there. And then the other one was Matt Taylor from Exeter City. Promoted to League One again last season. Replaced Paul Tisdale, which is pretty hard boots to fill. I believe he was I think he came from within the club. He might have been an under 21 manager or something like that. My research has let me down there. But the cons obviously still relatively young. A lot of these managers are still relatively young, and we might need a firefighter if things go really tits up by the next 3 or 4 games. And I've got under firefighters. Struggle to think of manager within our wage bracket. That's my notes.
Yeah.
And knowing our current constraints and league position. So we don't have the money of Stoke, so we can't bring in Alex Neil. And a bigger name probably wouldn't take the risk, would they?
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. And to be honest, what I would say is people have suggested like Dyche and Slaven Bilic. That's just not going to happen. Like, I'm sorry.
I don't know about Dyche though. Why?
No, he's waiting for a pen job. That's not happening, Tom.
Is he?
I think
you
he
look
is.
at where he's been, Watford and Burnley.
He's waiting for a Prem job, mate. 100%.
If Lampard gets sacked, he's going to Everton. I'm telling you right now. He's not going to come to. He's not going to come to town.
Not the way Everton are set up there now. Not what they're going for with the future, that stadium, everything. They're not going to get someone like Dyche in.
No, they've just got James Tarkowski and Dwight McNeil, 2 Burnley players. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not an Everton podcast.
I don't think Dyche is too unrealistic. I think it's not going to happen, but I don't think it's as unrealistic as people think.
Oil's not going to pay his wages, bro.
No,
yeah,
but I don't.
We're not going to give him money to build a team.
No, so why would he come?
I don't think it's. I'm not. No, but I just don't think he's as big as people make out.
He's a Premier League manager. Like he's not. We're not a Premier League team, so it's just not going to happen. Like anyway, Tom, who realistically. Who would you bring in?
Realistically, who would I bring in?
If it continues to be bad.
Who would I want to bring in? I don't know. I actually can't think who I'd actually want to bring in as a coach, because those names that Freddie's listed, I don't know anything about them particularly. So it's just
neither did I till about half an hour ago.
Yeah, exactly. So it's literally what we've had the last since Wagner. Is literally what we've had. People we don't know coming in. So do you know what? I don't care really.
Okay.
If that's the way we're going, I don't care. If we're changing it and going for someone with a bit of experience, I don't know who you look at.
Mowbray would have been good, but he's gone to Sunderland.
You've got Scott Parker just out of job. Woodgate.
He won't come down.
I don't want any more street memed videos, please. Not for town. We've had enough jokes in our time. I don't want any more of those.
Parker was in the dugout with his £2,000 cardigan at town.
Yeah.
Oh, mate. We live in a world where you lose
Nigel
one game and you're the worst
Adkins-
manager in the... Oh, no, not a Town, please, no.
Nigel Adkins is one name that's come up a few times whenever we've lost a manager, so I wouldn't be surprised. Look, I'm listing names, realistic names.
It's
You
slim
just asked
pickings,
me.
though, isn't it, really?
That's what I
Okay,
mean.
yeah.
You've just asked me
Right.
for realistic names. I'm going
Right,
through
Tom,
realistic
settle.
names. But it is Brady. I actually cannot think.
No, I'm the same. I was struggling for names as well.
Okay.
So then
So-
who'd you
Yeah.
get in?
Well,
Wagner.
right.
Bring Wagner back.
I've had time to think about this, and I've been chatting to Matt about it. And I think we're in agreement. Hate to say it as well. Look, I think the thing is, before people be like, "Oh, you want Schofield gone," we all want Schofield to do well. Like, I think I can speak for the whole pod when we say that. But 5 defeats in 7 games, if it continues like it's not good enough. And we've been asked the question. Realistically, for me, and Matt's in me and Matt kind of feel similar about this, so I may be repeating some of his points, but I think we need if it carries on like this, and like you touched on, Freddie, if you're in a situation where it's a relegation battle, it's essentially a Cowley job. You need a man manager to come in who's got I'm not saying get Danny Cowley. I'm not
Sounds
but
like you
need
are.
no. You need
Wait
a man
a minute.
manager.
Danny Cowley's here.
Yeah, no, Brady, yeah, I appreciate the call, but I don't think I'm taking that job again. You know, even as Phil is obviously left as chairman, I'm pretty happy at Portsmouth. Obviously, we've got Joshy there on loan from the club, and I'm really trying to build a foundation here. You know, with the team showing a lot of desire, a lot of character, a lot of threat. So it wouldn't be for me, to be honest.
All right, cheers, Danny, for
Fair
popping in.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Teddy.
Please
I'm not. I
quash
wouldn't want
those
Danny's running.
rumours.
Right. Okay. Okay. Let me get this out. But I think we need a man manager who's going to lift the players if the situation continues like this. Right. I think realistically, we're not going to get Dyche. We're not going to get like a firefighter, like you say. I think the best Town could do is maybe go for someone top end League One, lower end Championship, and I think Paul Warne from Rotherham.
I don't
Good
think
shout.
they'd get Paul Warne.
I think they'd get Paul
I'd
Warne.
want Paul Warne all day long, but I
Liam
think
Richardson at Wigan as well is a good shout, but I don't think he'd leave.
if
He's
Paul
they're above
Warne's,
us.
Exactly, Freddie. If Paul Warne's doing well at Rotherham, the club that he obviously loves so much, the fact that
He's almost
been
died
there.
for.
Well, yeah. Do you know what I mean,
Literally.
Brady? I'm with you. I'd want Paul Warne all day long. I've wanted Paul Warne to become Town manager since Wagner, really, since Wagner left. But I just don't think he'll leave, especially if he's doing decent with Rotherham.
I think the only thing I would say though is it depends how you sell it. And I think if Dean was backing him in January, look, Rotherham are a bit of a yo-yo club in this league.
Yeah.
You know, and I think personally, maybe it's just hoping. I think he's a good manager. I think he's a good man manager. Like you say, he's very committed to Rotherham. My only slight concern is someone is so committed to one club. Is that going to work somewhere else? I kind of thought that with Eddie Howe, but I suppose blood money helps with that. But
Allegedly.
I think
Allegedly.
allegedly. I think Paul Warne is realistic enough, and I'm not criticising Rotherham, but the fact is, like, we have a bigger wage budget, and I think it's a step up in terms of that sense for Paul Warne and the ability to test himself without it being, too much. I think it's one of them where I think he genuinely could be like a Premier League manager if he carries on.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's good, and I wonder if it's Town. I'm not saying like he's going to go to Liverpool or anything to replace Klopp, but like I think it could be like lower end Prem for sure. And I think Town would have an opportunity to get him, and it could, it's a bit of a gamble, but it's a good move, and I think that could work, and I think that's fairly realistic. I think
it's not a
we
bad
have better
shout.
players than Rotherham, like on paper. So
I mean, we've loaned players to him.
Yeah. Anyway,
exactly.
Danny's going to be fine. He's going to sort it out. Don't worry.
You're really channeling James Whittaker there, mate. You're really channeling that positivity. I love some of that.
Don't worry. It's a tactic. It's like make us look bad for 10 games.
I forget who asked it, but I suppose the other thing, and look, like we said, but it's another Schofield question. It's how long do you give Schofield? We got asked by quite a few people.
How many games you played now? 7 or 6?
7.
7. I think 3 more.
Yeah.
They're three very big games as well.
Yep.
So QPR, Wigan, and Cardiff.
Yep.
The two home games, they're the big ones. I think if you're not getting 4 points minimum from those home games, I said to Cozzy, we needed, I think it was 9 points since Blackpool from our next 6 is what we need, and to keep for him to stay in.
Yeah.
And
Coventry aren't going to stay crap forever. They're a good team.
No,
I don't know how they're bottom.
But
They've only played 5 games, but
yeah,
they're good. They got really good players. Like, we could be in danger of being adrift. That's my worry.
Yeah,
and then the whole season will become more, just
the one
firefighting.
It is really interesting, this league, though. You've got to remember how tight it is. I think. Look, we all want him to pull it around, but when you look at the league. When you look at the league, the points gap is there, but there's a lot of teams on the same kind of goal difference. And I think you've always kind of got to look at the goal difference to kind of figure out where things are going. So from like 14th down, it's all like -2 to -4. Town are on -4 now. There's about 3 teams above on -4. Like, I think that's quite a good indication of where teams are at with where they're setting up. That's what I normally look at in the season, because you get a good feel about who's scoring and who's conceding. Do you know what I mean? And in the long run, it kind of all adds out. So at the moment, it's looking like Town are going to be down there with about 6 other teams, really.
Bielsa's out of a job.
Who?
Bielsa.
Yeah, true.
Well, do you know what? Michael O'Neill's out of a job, and I
would take Michael O'Neill. I'd take him.
So would I, Freddie.
I don't know if that's realistic potential. I don't know. Who knows? I mean,
I think right.
We play ourselves down as a club.
I know. I think we do play ourselves down as a club. Maybe the money isn't there, but I think as a attractive, well followed, well structured club. Look, we're following this. We're almost following this, trying to follow the same model as Brentford, aren't we? With the B team and all that.
Like a little Brentford. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fisher Price Brentford. That's what we're doing.
I think it is there. I think you could get someone decent in if they wanted to. And it's about, and would you do you know what I mean, Brady? We haven't had it for a while. When was the last time we brought in a bit of experience? Anyway, no, I don't want to talk Alex, because Danny is going to sort it out and keep us.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, the only thing that I think will happen if he does go, what I don't want is them to try and think lightning will strike twice with Corberan and try and get like Rayo Vallecano's under-19 coach.
Yeah,
so Freddie, I don't think that's going to work.
I agree.
Yeah, and also I don't think Wagner would come back.
He wouldn't. He wouldn't. No, not at this point. No.
Yeah, I don't know who. I think the question of how many games. I agree with you, Tom. I think 3. Someone said, "Oh, well, why don't we wait until the World Cup?" But that's 13 games.
No way.
That's half the season. And I think the thing is, I agree with you, 4 points. But I think if we see a turnaround in performances, I think that's it. Like, it depends. It depends as much on the performances as well.
Yeah, because you can't see a plan right now, can you? Really?
No.
That's the worrying thing for me. I can't really see a plan, like an evolution of how we're going to play.
Yeah, I kind of remember all this from Carlos, though. That's the only thing that is.
I just the only thing I know you've talked about Carlos a lot, but the only thing is he got a really good start, and that's what brought him being crap in the second half of the season.
Was it 23 games we didn't win?
No, it's like 2 wins in 23 or something.
That was it. Yeah, 2 wins in 23.
Yeah.
But he had such a good start, and that bought him time. And like I said to you, I know listeners will be sick of this, but we had no fans in. And
we had no fans.
We got
no grand.
That made a difference.
It did make a difference. Yeah.
That's like
you can feel it in the stadium.
Schofield is under so much more pressure.
Yeah,
he has been dealt a terrible hand. You've got.
Oh, no doubt.
Oh, spot on.
Proverbially hung out to dry. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I mean, we all agree. Like I've said this, it's a difficult position for any manager coming 3 weeks before the season, even if you're one of the most experienced in the game. So this isn't a criticism, Schofield. I question whether he's the right fit at the time. But anyway, let's move on because it's time for You're the Boss. How we're going to line up for the QPR game. Freddie, I always ask, but want to see if you change your mind. What's your managerial outfit if you're in the dugout?
Oh, I suit all day, mate.
Suit all day, yeah. What colour?
Oh, I don't want to go dark blue, but like a light enough blue that I don't look like a milkman.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Fair,
bold enough, but not too bold.
Yeah.
Fair. And in your not milkman man like suit, what's your lineup for Town? How would you line up in this one?
I'd probably go 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, whatever variation he decides to do. I'd probably, as you said, Brady, put Helik, Mbete, and Lees at the back. I'd play Kessler Hayden right. I'd play Nakayama left. Oh, it's bloody anyone for the midfield. I don't think Kasuma's fit, is he? Still?
Don't think so. No.
Okay. So I'd probably play Hogg. Redoni, Holmes in the middle.
Yeah.
And then I play Thomas right, Andrew in left, Ward middle.
Okay. Yeah. Tom, any difference?
Is that formation right? Is that in the correct?
I mean, I don't
players?
think you named a left back, but
oh no, I said Nakayama.
Yeah, you said Nakayama.
Oh, did you say
Nakayama? Yeah.
Hang on, have you
I picked more? Have I picked more than one? Have I picked
12
three? Have I picked 12 players? I might have. Okay, scratch one midfielder. Holmes. Regrettably.
Okay. Tom, any changes?
Right, so it was 3-4-2-1 against Blackpool.
Yeah, last time. Yeah.
So you had Hogg at centre back, so that's Helik going in there for me. I'm putting Nakayama in a back three, so Nakayama's dropping back from. I'm doing what I just said to you, basically. I'm putting Thomas as full back, almost. I know sometimes it's a bit frustrating with Thomas. Doesn't look like he's maybe tracking his man and stuff, but he's got the pace to maybe keep up with Willock. So I'd maybe like that there, and then I'd probably put Hogg and Russell in the middle, then push Jack up to that kind of two behind Ward with Andrew in, and then Ward up front. So kind of not many changes, just changing the players that he had on Sunday.
Yeah, no, good point. I mean, for me, again, I think pretty much the same team as Freddie. I do wonder I think the thing is, I wonder if you go back four so you can beef up the midfield and get a free in there, but I don't know.
I just don't trust our defense. I just don't trust our defense right now until we get Helican and Mbete settled.
Yeah.
So I'd rather pack it than have it a little bit more exposed.
I agree.
For now.
So yeah, pretty much your team, Freddie. I think the
correct version, the one with 11 players in it.
Yeah. So back three: Helik, Lees, Mbete, wing backs, Nakayama and Kessler Hayden, and then Redoni and.
It'd be nice to see
Hogg.
An adaptable, like you just don't get that much anymore in like managers, do you? Like adapting formations to games. It's always like
Carl did that last season, mate. Where you been?
Yeah, I know. No, but that's when he changed Freddie, didn't he? Do you know what I mean? It's
I hear you, mate.
It's like you don't have to stick to a philosophy. Play to the strengths you've got, and if the game asks for it, change to make to give yourself a better chance of winning. And like you said, maybe dropping back to a back four on Saturday will be good for us because look, that one thing they've done well at home. So it's been very mixed bag their form at home recently. But they've had two games where they've just started so well, and basically scored about 3 goals in the first 40 minutes. Yeah. We need to make sure we can see that 40 minutes out because when they have struggled, so it was Borough and Hull that they absolutely annihilated basically in the first half, but then they struggled against Rotherham and Blackpool where it was they just couldn't get anything done in that kind of opening 30 minutes. So if we can hold strong for that first 30. Yeah, you never know, but I think that's a tactical thing that you've got to do that. I think you do have to load that defense out.
Yeah, that's what I think because we started so many games so poorly.
Yeah.
Like the amount of times where I've just looked at my phone, it's notification, 5-minute goal against Town. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
Okay. Well, you talked on little predictions then, Tom. What do you think for the score prediction then?
I haven't even written that down. But I'll go because they're gonna score, right?
Yeah.
It's whether they've conceded goals this season, but
They
the annoying thing is we've scored a few, but these last two games, I don't know what it is. Couldn't score against Blackpool, couldn't score against Bristol City.
Girls born with banjo.
Who've both conceded goals, so we need a goal. But I'm gonna be positive and say it's gonna be 2-2.
Okay, 2-2.
I'm gonna get a point down in West London.
Fuck it. I'm going 2-1 Town.
Yes, Freddie.
Love that.
Ward, Angerin.
Nice. I'd take that. I mean, to be honest, I think Helik will definitely, he'll definitely start. I think Mbete may start, and I think that will make a big difference. But I think 1-0. To be honest, I think
I'll take 1-0.
1-0. I think could be 2-1 then.
I'm just going to bring in the master predictor, Mark Lawrenson, Brady. He's going to.
Oh, Mark Lawrenson. No, Tom, the marking result for every game we've played. That's the best Mark Lawrenson I can do.
Okay.
I just remember the FIFA 99 commentary. So he was just on a loop going, the marking result every time he conceded a goal.
Yeah, they're great commentaries where it's just the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, he did a football cliches episode where they spoke to him about like how little he sounds like he cares on all the commentaries he used to do for the games.
No, it's really weird.
Hear that. That was great.
Mark Lawrenson and Danny Murphy sound exactly the same when they're commentating. It's really weird. I've had so many times where I'm like, which one is it?
Just dour northern men.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched there's a sketch on YouTube of this guy who takes off Hansen, Lineker, and Lawrenson. And I always repeat it to all my friends because there's a bit where Lawrenson goes, well, you're talking about, a guy who's in his, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30-year-old, even then was showing the maturity of, what you're 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40-year-old, get it. So good.
Amazing. Right. I'll tell you what else is amazing. It's the amazing ventures of the Amazing Elbow.
Hey.
I think the fans could probably see I was trying my best, working hard.
The Amazing Elbow.
As a centre forward, the last thing you want is a goal drought starting off in a club. Started on my own up front, and the really good centre forwards like Jordan were rested.
Tom, tee us up. What is our Cape Crusader this time?
Right, so previously he just assaulted the cabbage man in the kit office, ignoring the blueprints completely. Is he going to regret that at some point? Potentially. Could have been some juicy information there, but instead he just decided to randomly elbow the cabbage man. So everyone voted in their droves for this because...
What, three people? Three whole people voted for this? Bloody hell. All that work you put in, Tom. Shambles. How dare they?
And they voted for... It was 10.
It was 12. Anyway.
They voted that the cabbage man sets his army of dinner ladies upon the Amazing Elbow, who then is trapped and he's held down by these dinner ladies, and it looks like there's no way out because the pure strength of these dinner ladies just looks too much for him, and he can only do one thing to escape. So he reaches down to his left sock and removes ... What does he remove? Freddie, would you like the honour of going first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I've got a niche answer, which you two might get, but I don't know how many people will get, while staying completely politically impartial. He could pull out a pork market from Beijing. If you know, you know. But the actual answer I would like to give is Thomas Tuchel's compensation fee. He chucks it around in £50 notes showering his enemies with it and distracting them so he can get away.
Oh, those dinner ladies would be distracted by that. I tell you that. Bloody hell. That's a good one. They might be distracted by his pork market as well.
So Tom, for the listeners, because they'll see when we tweet it out. But what were the dinner ladies' names? The army of dinner ladies.
We had Sam, Samantha Allardyce, Tonya Pulis, and Mary Hughes. And then there's one more, which is was a request by Matt, which we'll save for the person in.
Was it Sharon? And I said to Sharon, I've got one challenge left.
Well, my answer is if it's Samantha Allardyce and Tonya Pulis, I think a good distraction technique would be an invitation to a luxury pundit gig in Qatar.
3 pints of wine for everyone.
Yeah. With
Rushford as a guest appearance, PA. If you know, you know.
So, Tom, what's your answer?
I'm going topical with Town, and he pulls out his ever reliable little robot friend Hawkeye.
Just rubbing it in.
Will he work? Probably not.
I like that. And I think that's definitely going to win the poll. Okay, so your three answers are: he has Thomas Tuchel's compensation. Is that was what you?
That's the right one. Yeah.
Yeah. An invitation to a pundit gig in Qatar, or his little robot friend Hawkeye. So we will put these to a vote as always, and you will vote on what happens next week. Right. Okay. Before we get off, I'm going to do a little plea. Oh, Brady's going to do a little plea. I haven't mentioned it on the pod, but you may have seen me tweet it. But I'm actually running the Great North Run this Sunday for Shelter, the homelessness charity. So some Town fans have already donated, and I want to say thanks to everyone who has donated. It's really kind of you. But I have hit my target. I'm aiming for £500. So I don't normally ask for much, but I am going to put my link. I'm going to tweet my link out when this episode goes out and put it in the podcast episode description. So, yeah, if you could donate, obviously with the cost of living and everything at the moment, shelter is kind of more important than ever. So, that's my little charity plug. But appreciate it.
Nice.
If you could,
nice one, mate.
Nice one. Okay, so that's it. This has been a bit of a rambly one. I'm sorry it's been a bit depressing, but look, as Freddie said, we're shit or bust with Town, and it's a bit of a bust at the moment. So that's what Town does to you. Thanks to Tom and Freddie for this one. Thank you to Magic Rock, who I'm sure are delighted to sponsor this episode in particular. And don't forget, if you want to drown your sorrows, you can get 10% off all online orders with the code AHTTC10. So make sure to enter that at the checkout. We'll be back to preview the next game. Thanks to everyone for listening to Tar for Now and Up the Town.
Up the Town.
So Town, play up. Bring the car back to Huddersfield.